It is once again your best friend Justin here. Today, I actually wanted to talk about something that kind of occurred last night that inspired me to make this video, and that is the younger generation. And listen, I'm part of the younger generation. I'm 27 years old, but when I say younger, I'm talking about the teenagers, late teens, even the kids in high school, middle school, and the influences they have and how it's kind of translating to this awkwardness in the real world, because I work part-time at a restaurant on the weekend, and I can't a lot of the kids there that work there, they're around 10 years younger than me, maybe 7 or 8 years younger than me, but a lot of these kids did school when they did school during COVID, where they were locked up. And I asked all of them, how old they were, and they pretty much all said they were either in high school or middle school, and they said they all did it for 2 years. And I can't help but think that that really has something to do with the awkwardness that we see with the teens who really just are lacking heavily in communication and interpersonal skills and empathetic skills as well. Um, what's inspiring me to make this is what I'm seeing in real life. And I've been seeing this obviously for a little while now. I'd say the past 3 or 4 years I really started to notice this. Another thing obviously is social media and the explosion of the use of it, especially since COVID. And just over the years in general. We are the generation that is going hand in hand with technology. We are going to have technology integrated in us somehow. It's already integrated in our lives fully. So the next step, obviously, that a lot of so-called conspiracy theorists talk about is they want to get it inside you somehow. But that's a different topic for a different day. Obviously, you have this Hawk Twa girl here, who is the third most listened to podcast right now behind Joe Rogan. And this is the future of the world. This is why I'm showing her here, because this is the future of the world. And I'm going to show you other people throughout this. This is the future of the world right here. People like her who, whether people, I see stuff on X that say she might be controlled opposition, this and that. Oh, she's part of the Jewish occult. I mean, she might be. Who knows? But I don't want to focus on that right now. I want to focus on the fact that she's famous. She's out there. The powers that be who control the flow of information, who control headline news, who control the mainstream media, who control what we see on a daily basis, they made her famous. She exploded off TikTok for saying Hawk Twa, right? And listen, I don't want to explain what that means for those of you who might not know. You can just go look it up. The video is very short of how she got famous. But now she has her own podcast, this and that. I went on her YouTube just before I started this video, and she has over 100,000 subscribers. So this is the degeneracy, though. And listen, I'm not trying to hate on her. Maybe she's not controlled opposition. Let's say this is genuine. Like she genuinely just exploded off this, and she's capitalizing off this internet sensation. And I'm not trying to knock down her hustle here, but I just don't understand how anyone in their right mind could possibly want to listen to what this woman has to say. I mean, I've listened to these podcasts, and she doesn't say anything valuable. She's a pretty girl. She's young. She said something sexual. And she just has to keep teasing the guys that watch her, and they'll probably donate her money. They'll make her famous, because guys are such simps these days. But, I mean, she's throwing a first pitch for the New York Mets. It's crazy. And this girl said something sexual, and this is what your kids are seeing. And let me tell you something. When I was in this pizza place, this happened on 2 occasions. There was a group of teens that walked in there, and they looked to be around 15 years old, let's say. And they were saying the Hawk Twa analogy. I don't know exactly what they were using it for. It wasn't like in a sexual way. But they were using the term Hawk Twa as, oh, you're going to go over here and get some Hawk Twa. Oh, we're going to go over there and get some Hawk Twa. I mean, it sounded like they're just using it as, we're going to go get this done, almost. Or they're using Hawk Twa as a synonym for that. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But my point is they were using Hawk Twa. And then the most recent thing that happened just the other week was I was in the pizza place, and there were these 3 young girls. They looked to be around 12 years old. I mean, really young, like middle school. and they were with their mom, and their mom looked like she didn't speak English well. It looked like she had broken English. She looked to be a Latina. So anyway, the girls, whatever, they're eating their food, this and that, and then I heard one of them say the hawk toi. She was like, "Oh, hawk toi," and I don't know what the context she used it for, but she said it loudly to where I heard that in particular, and I was just like, "What the heck?" These girls are young, and this is what the kids are looking at. It's degeneracy. It's desensitization. It's desensitizing you. It's demoralizing you, spiritually bankrupting you from an early age with this stuff. And I know there's porn, this and that out there, but it seems like there's just this way to attack kids now where it doesn't have to be porn. It could just be sexual references like this. It could just be this young girl in her early 20s becoming famous, and now teenagers, maybe not only like 5 years younger than her, are looking up to her and idolizing her because she's famous. They don't know any better than to idolize her because she's famous. So these kids think it's cool. And parents, obviously, they don't understand social media. They don't understand the trends. They don't understand where things are going. They're not educating their kids on this. You know? So that's why we're getting to where we are. It's no longer celebrities in Hollywood that are the big influences anymore. It's no longer people you see on TV or in media necessarily. Now it's people you see on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube. That's where the future is right now. It's streamers, podcasters. That's the future. It's not the TV shows anymore. It's not Netflix. You're not going to get as famous through Hollywood anymore. Now, it's the streamers and the podcasters that are guiding the youth in particular. When I say youth, mind you, I'm talking more so teenagers and people in their 20s, more so probably early 20s, who fall victim to this degeneracy right here from these people. And listen, someone like Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson are obviously much more intelligent people, and there's much more intelligent dialogue that goes on compared to Speed or Ninja here. I understand that Speed and Ninja are more the degenerate ones, but Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson, the reason why I put them here is because Joe Rogan obviously says some truth. He doesn't say the whole truth, though. Joe Rogan gets billions of views per day. Joe Rogan, I think, is the number one watched podcast. Funny enough, and this young hawk toi Haley Welsh girl is not far behind him. Joe Rogan, the reason why he's not going to say the whole truth is because he is either controlled or he just doesn't want to lose his platform. It's that simple. I understand why someone wouldn't want to lose their platform. I understand that if you're going to use YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, that you got to play quote unquote by the rules. I don't agree with that. I believe we should all stop using these platforms and go to a platform that have freedom of speech, actually, to where you're not censored and you're not and freedom of speech isn't controlled by a few people. You know what I mean? I definitely don't agree with YouTube's terms and all this stuff. I don't agree that people won't use their massive platforms to actually spread a educational message and facts. I understand. And again, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, there's intelligent dialogue that goes on with them. They say facts, but they're misleading you. And it's always with politics, usually. It's usually, well, we got to get Trump back in office. Obviously, that's more Tucker Carlson. We got to get Trump back in office, this and that. But what people don't get is that Trump and Biden are two wings on the same bird. They work for the same people. There is no, oh, it's lesser of the two evils. They're both evil and wicked. It's just that they make one party seem less wicked than the other. So anyway, my point is that this is who's shaping right now the younger generation. I would say Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan have a more mature audience, as in it is probably older people watching them, especially Tucker Carlson. But there's definitely a lot of Generation Zers. There's definitely a lot of millennials that watch Tucker Carlson because, you know, a lot of people around my age are a little older or even a little younger. I mean, people are at the age where they're into politics. They can understand it. Maybe someone doesn't understand politics and that it's all fake. Maybe they will one day. And then you got someone like Alex Jones, right? Alex Jones has been used. I don't know if he was genuine from the start. Maybe he was. I mean, I really loved, in particular, his documentary he did like 20 years ago almost on the Federal Reserve. That was I remember watching that when I was like 22, and that was very enlightening for me, and that really opened up my eyes to the banking system, all that stuff. But now Alex Jones is being used to make someone like me or someone like you who might talk about some truth look crazy. Because my content, people are automatically going to think Alex Jones. Even Joe Rogan. Because Joe Rogan talks about conspiracies. But I'm being compared, with not even just me, other people like me who get compared with Alex Jones. And now he's got these lawsuits against him. He's taking back what he said in the past. Because he's meant to make someone like us look crazy. And again, he's just like Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson, who says some truth, but just not the whole truth. And also, this adds credibility to him. The fact that he was in court, the fact that he's got to pay these fines or whatever, it adds to his credibility to people who are big fans of him, because now he's been in trouble. Now they think, oh, look, they're going after him just like they go after Trump. He must be doing something right. He must be saying truth. But it's not the whole truth. He's part of it. I mean, you got to watch who these people are who get millions of views, who get millions of followers. You got to understand, when you're at that level, you are an influence over people. You have an influence over a good percentage of the population at that point. If you aren't controlled, or you're not doing what they say, or you're just promoting degeneracy, it's fine. But if you're talking about real truth and you get millions of views, millions of followers, you're going to get deplatformed. It's just that simple. So I wanted to get back to what I was saying earlier about, the teens and the degeneracy of them falling for these streamers and these podcasters and these people they see, especially on Instagram or TikTok, social media influencers or whatever. I mean, it's crazy that teens are spending at least 4 hours per day. At least 4 hours. And we're all guilty of this. I first created a Facebook when I was in 7th grade. That's when I made a Facebook. I then made an Instagram in high school, a Snapchat in high school. My first Twitter account was in high school. And then when I was 21, I deleted all my social media for a year. And then I just slowly got back on it. And I decided to use it to spread educational messages and meaningful messages instead of just posting nonsense like we always do. But this isn't good. This isn't good. You gotta ask yourself, when you're like me, you're in your late 20s, or people in their 30s, people in their 40s, maybe you don't have kids. I don't have kids. But what are we doing for this generation coming behind us? We aren't doing anything for them. You see, your parents and my parents and our grandparents already screwed us because they wanted to borrow from the Federal Reserve, from our generation, so that they can prosper. And now our generation is facing inflation, so that where a normal job is not even enough to survive these days. No one can buy a house. People can't afford groceries. And it's not going down. We can see it's not going down. We see the mess. I don't want to get into it with that. But we got to ask ourselves, what are we doing that can help to educate these kids? Because the parents, I'm not going to say all, but most aren't doing it. And it's not that they're not doing it out of laziness. I think that the parents genuinely just don't understand the impact of social media because they didn't grow up with it. Like my parents, right? My parents are both 63 years old. They don't understand social media. I can explain it to them all day, and they kind of get it, but they haven't experienced it. They haven't grown up with it the way we all are right now. If you're in your 30s, 20s, your teens, again, for me in particular, it was in middle school when all of a sudden people started going on social media, and by the time I was in high school, it was really big already. So, I'm sure this is probably getting worse as the years go on. I would imagine during COVID that was the peak of social media use. I mean, that's really where TikTok, I feel like, exploded. Was 2019, 2020, 2021. That's when it just exploded. But my point is that if we ignore this problem, if we don't try to try to educate maybe your little siblings, your little cousins, start with your family, maybe your friends' siblings, whoever it might be. If you're in a youth group, a church group, whatever, um, uh, if you're just in a setting where you can speak to kids about social media, I think it's important because, mind you, this is the generation coming up behind us. And it's easy for us to just be like, oh, what's wrong with these kids these days? They're so weird. They don't have respect like us. Well, it's because they're not being properly taught. Maybe if they're properly taught, things can change. And that brings me to my point, obviously. My overall point to try to end this with some positivity is, sometimes you got to be the change you want to see. You really, truly do. Sometimes you got to be the one to say weird things, to do weird things, um, because you don't want to be like the majority. Because the majority of people are misleading, and the majority of people tend to be wrong all the time. And if you have kids, if you are in a position where you can educate kids, it's important to let them know that they might end up being weird. They might end up being the quote unquote weird one. Not that they are weird, but they're going to be viewed as weird if they're not on social media as much, or if they don't have social media, or if they're not using their phones as much, or if they're not wearing, the girls aren't wearing skanky clothes like their friends, this and that, or the guys aren't having the bad mouths the way teens do these days, this and that. So I think it's important that we understand these things and we understand where the world is headed. I know it sounds negative, a lot of this stuff, because it's really it's really bad already that a lot of these teens are indulged so much in the social media, in the culture, to a point where now it's like, if your daughter, let's say, or your son is 15, and you never are trained them to get off social media, and now all of a sudden you try to do it. I mean, that's going to be real hard because he's going to be already used to going on it every day. He's going to be used to spending his time on it. It's basically like taking a part of his life away because he's so addicted to it. He needs it. He can't imagine life without it, or she can't imagine life without it. So it's difficult. But again, this is how the powers that be target the kids, target teens, target the young generation. It's through these degenerates on social media, on YouTube, on through Hollywood, through Netflix. That's how they do it. So, my goodness, excuse me. All right, guys, I'm going to end it here because obviously my throat is giving out. This is your best friend, Justin. Let me know what you guys think about everything I said here. And please feel free to leave a comment, and please like and subscribe. Take care now.